بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Dear viewers, I do welcome all of you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, I praise Allah and blessing upon His Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We are honored today in Abha Cooperative Center for Call and Community to make an informal, brotherly, friendly interview with our dear respected brother Abdullah Abu Yusuf, in order to enlighten us about his spiritual journey. So in this, when we talk about Abha Cooperative Center for Call and Community, we're talking about non-profitable place where a lot of the expatriates can enjoy a lot of the program that we have, for example, teaching Arabic language free of charge, providing them with books about the culture and the faith and so on. And also we are distinguished in the sense that we have a program, we call it Call Beyond Boundaries, or we call it Electronic Dawah Project, through which we send books and literature in 19 different languages to 190 countries so far. The website and the email will be announced to you, dear viewers, towards the end of this interview. So it will be shown to you. We'll show both our website, which you can visit and benefit and avail yourself from these books in 19 languages that are sent free of charge. And also we will announce our email to keep in touch and keep contact. So without any more introduction, I introduce our dear guest, brother Abdullah Abu Yusuf, in the Islamic way by saying Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As you know, brother Abdullah, every story has a beginning. We would like to live with you the experience or the landmarks of your spiritual journey. So could you please brief us on the spiritual journey that you went through until you reverted to Islam?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. First and foremost, with any good thing, we start with the name of God. So I say Bismillah. My story is not, I wouldn't consider it, special, but mashallah. I can say it started when I was fairly young, maybe 12 years old, 13 years old. Like most, African Americans in America, we are Christian. I mean, from many, many different denominations. Maybe we'll be Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian. I myself used to be Baptist. So, I grew up going to church. I mean, it was a part of my daily routine. Every Sunday, we would go to church. Or I would go to church with my grandparents every Sunday. Or I would go to church with my father. This was the norm. And I can remember the moment when I felt a change in my heart. Nothing really, there was no prelude or prequel up to this moment. I can just remember the moment when I was sitting in church and I felt as if I didn't belong there. I felt very strange. And like many reverts, we feel a sense of hesitation, a sense of fear, a sense of reluctance. because to abandon one's religion or the religion of one's parents requires a lot of courage. So, in my adolescence, I decided to study the religion that I was raised upon. I thought that this would entail, increasing my devotion or increasing my belief, but it had the opposite effect. This actually led me to making the certain, I had a lot of certainty when I made this decision. And even I remember sitting my mother down, and I told her that, I said, I'm no longer Christian, and I no longer, desire going to church. And for her, it was no big deal. Alhamdulillah. I know people, they face a lot of aversion from their families. But, alhamdulillah, my mom, she had no problem. So, as a result, I studied the history of Christianity, the development of Christianity, the different, historical moments that changed the way the religion was practiced. And my intention the entire way was to try to find the religion that Jesus practiced. Because in my mind, it didn't make sense that he was a Jew and the Jews killed him. That it didn't add up. I thought there was more to the story. And, alhamdulillah, I came across, many things as far as the Bible itself being changed many times. And the different versions of the Bible, the differences that are within each version. As far as some Bibles, they say that Jesus isn't the Son of God. Some Bibles, they say he's the Son of God. Some Bibles say he's the Son of Man. There are many differences. And, I came to the conclusion that I can't really rely on this book for, as a means of guidance. So, let's see. Now we have to fast forward to high school. That's maybe 10th grade. Yeah, 10th grade. I was maybe 15 years old. And I was sitting in class with, a very dear friend of mine. We were in history class. And he said he was going to change his religion. So, this was like an epiphany. Because the idea of changing one's religion never occurred to me. I didn't know it was possible, right? So, I said, so how do you change your religion? He said, you just believe something else.
You were thinking that someone is born with the religion?
He dies with the religion.
Dies.
Right. So he said, you just believe something else. I said, okay, khalas, that's it. I said, well then, what should I practice? What should I believe in? He says, I have a few books. I have some books on Islam and I have some books on the Rastafarian movement. Right? Initially, I was adverse to Islam.
Could you just brief us on this Rastafarian movement? Tell us what is it?
The Rastafarian movement.
Yes, please.
Alright, so the Rastafarian movement actually developed in Jamaica, maybe the 1930s, 1940s. And this actually sprung out of many revolutions that occurred on the slave plantations amongst a group called the Maroons. And the Maroons, when they escaped from slave plantations, they would go live in what we call the bush. The bush is like the mountainous area. And the Rastafarian movement aligned itself as another group of Christianity. However, they deify modern figures. There are three main figures in the Rastafarian movement. One, his name is Haile Selassie. And Rastafarians claim that Haile Selassie is actually the descendant of King Solomon. Right? Because due to the interpretation of the Bible, it states that, Jesus will come back like a thief in the night and he'll come back and sit on the throne of David. So based on their interpretation of certain verses concerning the return of Jesus Christ, they say that this man is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. So as a result, they take him as their God figure. The second important figure in the Rastafarian movement, his name is King Emmanuel. He's not a king, but this is what they call him, King Emmanuel. King Emmanuel is the self-claimed reincarnation of Melchizedek. And in the Bible, Melchizedek was the high priest or the religious leader or the religious administrator for King Solomon. And the third main figure would be Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was one of the figures who actually propagated the repatriation of African descendants from the West back to Africa. So this would include South America, North America, the Caribbean islands. He was the main propagator of people from African descent returning back to Africa. So, I mean, for me, this struck home. And I mean, the reason why I was adverse to studying Islam was because at that time, my understanding of Islam was parallel with the beliefs of the Nation of Islam. Many of us, what I mean by us, I mean, African American males, we read the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's like, it's the norm. I mean, I don't really know how to describe it, but I don't know any African American male that I've grown up with or that I've befriended that hasn't read this book. This is, for many of us coming from single mother households, single parent households, this book serves as giving us a sense of a role model, because this is, one thing that many of us lack. So, due to the situation between Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, meaning, them assassinating him, I thought that the Nation of Islam was Islam. So when my friend said, I have books on Islam, you should read about Islam, I said, no. So, I love Malcolm, and I agree with what he stood for. Even towards the end of his life, Malcolm X actually became Muslim when he, came in to make Hajj.
He corrected his concept of the religion.
Yes, even this was one of the things that he was going to propagate when he returned to America, was the differences between the tenets of the Nation of Islam and Islam, right? Because what they believe doesn't necessitate Islam, and what they believe doesn't make them Muslims. However, many of us don't know this, right? So, as a result, I said, no. I said, you read, everything about Islam, and I'll read about the Rastafarian movement. Alright, so as a result, this is what I began to practice. The Rastafarians take many of their rules and regulations, their laws, from the Old Testament. Meaning they don't eat meat, they don't drink wine, they don't eat pork, they don't comb their hair, they don't cut. This is from the Nazarite vow. In the Old Testament, the Nazarite vow was when a man wishes to get closer to God. So as a result, he changes his diet. He, abstains from combing his hair. He abstains from shaving his beard. And this is him returning back to the most natural sense of being. And for me, I practiced it and I studied. And after maybe 5 or 6 years of practicing and studying, I came to the conclusion that they were pretty much the same as Christians. As far as, pointing to certain historical figures and deifying them. Even, for example, Haile Selassie never claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus. He never claimed to be God. Even he himself was Christian. The same thing as, Christians take the Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, the son of Mary, they take him as their Lord figure. However, he never proclaimed this. Even as far as what they believe, he wasn't even Christian. Right? So, me making the juxtaposition between the two, comparing the two, I said, really, they're the same. And I was pretty much at a dead end, as we say. I was sure what not to believe, but I wasn't sure what to believe. I always had a sense of God, always, and I've always considered myself fairly spiritual. I've always had a consciousness of, good and evil, right? Of a creator, and that, he controls the affairs of people. But as far as how to connect with him, this was the issue. Even I used to believe that everyone has their own way to get to God. And this was how I justified what I believed. That everyone, you can take your own way to God and, He'll accept it from you. So I was at a dead end, because after my studies, I've studied Buddhism, I've studied Hinduism, I've studied Christianity, I've studied the Rastafarian movement. After studying many religions and many philosophies and many, spiritual paths, I gave up. I mean, I never stopped believing in God, but as far as searching for something, I gave up. And I remember, now I'm 20 years old. This is maybe my junior year in college. And I remember having the intention of changing, my life. Because I was involved in many things, I'll spare the details for the name. But I was involved in many things that were life-threatening. And as a result, I knew that if I continued on the path that I was on, sooner or later, it would destroy me. And I needed a change, but I didn't know what change to make. So, subhanAllah, even to this day, sometimes I sit and try to come to grips with where this thought even came from. and it was to, read the Quran. I didn't have a Quran. I wasn't friends with any Muslims. I never spoke to anyone about Islam. But my grandmother had a Quran. My grandmother used to be a warden, in the prison system in Baltimore, and she was given the Quran as a gift by the prisoners. And she had it in her house, and I remember seeing it. I was actually looking for some photo albums one day when I came across it. I never opened it or read it, but I came across it. So I called her. And I asked her if she could mail it to me. She said, sure. I mean, it's just sitting on a bookshelf, it's just sitting in a basket. So she said, sure. She mailed it to me. So this was January, and I was by myself. I was in North Carolina. This is where I went to school, and I waited until all of my friends went back to DC because this was around the time of the inauguration. So everyone, from DC, everyone was going back to DC to party. I mean, Obama was in office, and it's a big party. But I wanted to stay by myself because I felt the need to, read this book. So I opened it, and subhanAllah, from the first verse, from the first chapter, Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening, I was sure that this was the truth. Because from my studies, I know, or I have some familiarity with how people speak. Or even if it's philosophy, even if it's religious leader, I have some familiarity with how people word their sentences. And one thing that I found strange about the Quran was how the sentences were structured. For example, Lord of the worlds, or the most beneficent, the most merciful, or the Lord of the Day of Judgment. I said, who talks like this? I said, people don't write like this. I know, no one ever claimed anything like this amongst the people. Right? And I said, this book, it's, strange. And then so I go to the next chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow. And then we have, this is the book wherein there's no doubt. I said, who can say this? Who can say that there's no doubt in a book like this? I mean, because when people write, we know that due to the imperfections of man, you're going to find mistakes. I said, so who talks like this? Here's the book, there's no doubt. For those who believe in the unseen. I said, what is this? This is, it's very strange.
Because usually from the beginning, some people, they put hypothesis, then through, their methodology, they reach the conclusion.
Right, or they try to convince you.
Yeah.
There's no convincing. In the book, it says there's no doubt. There's no room for error. I said, subhanAllah. This is very strange for me. I couldn't stop reading. I read the first chapter, the second chapter, the third chapter, the fourth chapter, the fifth chapter, the sixth chapter, the seventh. Until maybe it was, I read all night. I couldn't stop. And, I came across how to purify oneself and how to pray. And so I said, okay, how do I do it? I got on YouTube. You can find anything on YouTube. And, alhamdulillah, it's only from the favor of God that the things that I came across were correct. Because one thing that you find amongst no Muslims when they research things online, they come across many misguidances, and they don't know. We don't know. So I looked up how to make wudu, like how to purify myself, and how to pray. So I followed the video and I prayed, and this was my secret. So I began to study Islam secretly. I found different books. I read the books. I read about the biography of the Prophet, and subhanAllah, the things that I've read, affected me unlike anything in my life. And up to this day, I can honestly say I've never second-guessed anything that I've read. And I mean, this is strange. I mean, because I've read many books, and I always have, as humans, we question everything, right? So when I read certain books, I say, no, this guy, I need to find out, where did he get this from? But everything that I've read from the Quran, I don't second guess it. I believe it, everything. And this was strange for me because, I consider myself somewhat of an intellectual individual where, I question my surroundings, I question almost everything. Except this, I've never questioned anything.
And you have a critical eye, studying communication.
Yes, I mean, this is even how the education system is in America. We learn critical analysis, especially studying literature. We have to know how to analyze the text. Where did he get the text from? What does it mean? Why does it mean that? Can it mean something else? And as far as the Quran is concerned, or as far as Islam is concerned, I've never found myself doing that. I've abandoned everything that I learned. So, subhanAllah. So this was my secret, and at the time I was living with all of my friends. There was maybe 10 of us, 11 of us, a big house. So, February, one of my friends comes home, he says, Muslim. I said, what is this? He said, how did you become Muslim? He said, I used to study in my room, and I found the masjid down the street. I went to the masjid, to the mosque, and I accepted Islam. So now we have one person in my house that's Muslim. My roommate, his name is Kenneth. We call him Nate, his nickname. He has actually been Muslim since we were in high school. But the way we live, you have no choice but to live like us. So as far as practicing Islam was concerned, he never practiced Islam.
You didn't have a good example, a good model?
No. I mean, it was a party house. Our house was known for partying. Even people from school, they come to our house just to party, right? So now that, Mark, his name was Mark, the one who accepted Islam in February. Now that he accepted Islam, now there's, some companionship between the two. They read together, they read the Quran together, they pray together, right? Because Kenneth was the only one who knew how to pray, right? So even I used to have the thought to pray with them, but I was afraid. I don't want my friends to think that, I'm changing, right? Because in my life, I've changed my religion a few times. And I've developed somewhat of a reputation for myself, during this time. And I was afraid that, my reputation would be, right. So I kept it to myself, right? And, after some time, after reading, after studying more, I made the decision that I have to accept Islam before I die, because I'm sure that it's the truth. And the only thing that I want is to die as a Muslim. So I went to the masjid, I accepted Islam, and alhamdulillah, and to make a long story short, I've never looked back.
Brother Abdullah, from your experience so far, what is the best mean to introduce Islam to truth seekers who are bewildered, who are not enjoying the spiritual satisfaction that you are enjoying at present?
I would say to lead by example. Because you can always talk to people about Islam, but before you talk to someone about Islam, first and foremost, you have to know what his misconceptions are. And in most cases, unless there's an organized forum where you have, Q&A and you know what people's issues are, you really don't know what to address. And it's been my experience, alhamdulillah, by the, all praises, belong to Allah. Many people have accepted Islam from me speaking with them, but I knew them personally. And I knew what issues they had. I knew what misconceptions they had. I knew what hang-ups in life they had. So for me, to give them da'wah or to call them to Islam, it was relatively easy because I knew what to focus on. So I would say leading by example. Because for example now, my mom, she has questions for me sometimes about Islam. Mainly because she works with Muslims, or she knows Muslims, or she sees Muslims in the street, and they may do something opposite to what I may do. You see? And same thing with my father. He works with Muslims. So he may ask me, why is it that they do this and you do this? Or are you right and they're wrong? Or are they wrong? Are they right and you're like, what's the difference? So first and foremost, we should lead by example, because non-Muslims watch what we do and they watch what we say. Especially in America. The people, they know what Muslims should do and what they shouldn't do. For example, if they know someone's Muslim and they see him smoking, they say, aren't you Muslim? They have a higher regard for Muslims than they do for themselves. Or if they see, a Muslim who isn't praying, aren't you supposed to pray? Right? Or, a man, who shaves his beard, they say, don't Muslim men, don't they grow their beard? Right? So first and foremost, should lead by example. Because it's been my experience as well that when they've seen the change in my life, they want to know why, what happened. Especially, those who know me before Islam and now. They're very interested.
They notice the change.
Yes. So they want to know what caused the change, or what caused you to be so firm upon the change. Because, there are many obstacles that we face in changing our lifestyle. From family, from the society, from our friends, from work. There are many obstacles that we face. So to find someone who is consistent, who is steadfast, this within itself is it's a big influence. There was one woman that I used to work with. Mashallah, she was a devout Christian. And she used to always ask me, about Islam, because I would take a break and go pray. Right? And I remember after, speaking with her about Christianity and how Christianity changed, and, she stopped talking to me for a moment. And she went and researched it. And I remember one time I was praying, in the back of the store. She was actually sitting behind me crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" She said, "I've come to the conclusion that I may have been wrong my entire life." And this is something that requires a lot of humility and a lot of courage to accept the fact that you might have been wrong, or to accept the fact that those whom you love may be wrong. And to tell them, or to clash with them, or to do opposite to them requires a lot of courage. So I mean, the biggest example, the biggest influence I would say is to lead by example.
Dear brother Abdullah, some people, truth seekers, they are still, delaying this decision, and as you know, sometimes Satan comes to the individual with his insinuation and get him or her to delay this decision. So what's your advice to those people who are still hesitant not to take this step, this important step that surely will grant them happiness in this life and the hereafter, as it did with you?
I think the most important thing, two things: humility and courage. Humility and courage. Because once someone realizes that what he used to believe may be a lie, or may be false, or may not be true, or may not, be a means of him obtaining happiness,
One should not be taken for granted.
right. The only thing that will cause him to leave it first and foremost is humility. Because no one will accept that he is wrong unless he humbles himself. And then courage. Because no one will change their entire life without courage. Right? So for those, who are really sincere as far as seeking the truth is concerned, my advice is humble yourself.
Can you add to this, taking Islam from its main sources rather than from so-called Muslims?
This is, subhanAllah, this was a big issue. Many people, even I myself, we used to think that, the Muslims are perfect because the religion is perfect. However, people aren't perfect, and this is, it's well known. So, and also this, it discourages many people, because you'll find Muslims who do the same thing as non-Muslims, right? And I'll spare the details. So, the most important thing is, look at the source. Islam is perfect. Islam was perfect. Islam will always be perfect. And the revelation and the sources of revelation in Islam are perfect. And this is what the person should focus on as far as developing, that faith, developing that courage, developing that motivation to take that step, right? Because sometimes, and I've known many people that have accepted Islam and they leave Islam. Why? Because of Muslims. Because of their character. Like today when we, spoke about it in the khutbah, because of their character. Or they're mean, or they're rude, or they look down on me. So they think this is Islam and they leave, right? So I think, another important thing is to focus on the sources of Islam, especially the Prophet, may, the peace and the blessing of God be upon him, and his companions. These are our role models, right? And these are the people whom God has said that he is pleased with. So if we should take anyone as a role model, it should be them, right? Because everything that we do came from them. Right, so I would say focus on that generation instead of this one.
Finally, Brother Abdullah, anything you would like to add?
Don't be afraid. This is, I think, the only thing that I can add is don't be afraid. Because living this life, you're going to face many difficulties. I won't lie to you. You're going to face many difficulties. And Allah has already told us this in the Quran, that He is going to test you concerning your wealth, concerning your money, concerning your family, concerning your children, concerning your health. So you're going to face many difficulties, but don't be afraid and don't waver. Why? Because Allah says, for those who believe in Him and they are steadfast upon that, they have no fear on the Day of Judgment, nor do they have anything to grieve over on the Day of Judgment. So don't be afraid, because we will face difficulties like those who are better than us and like those who were before us faced. SubhanAllah, there was one guy I gave da'wah to. I was actually sitting in the masjid one day, and he said, I'm interested in Islam, but I have some doubts. I said, okay. Okay. I said, let's talk. I said, you believe in God? He says, yes. So then we spoke about God, tell me about God. What do you believe about Him? I said, okay, this is good. I said, do you believe that God sent messengers? He said, yeah. I said, because, He wouldn't send angels to us. I said, we can't relate to angels. They don't get tired, they don't sleep, they don't eat. I said, how can you relate to them? I get tired, He said, yeah, I believe in messengers. I said, okay. I said, do you believe that, God said Muhammad is a messenger and He sent him with the Quran? I said, do you believe in Jesus? You believe in Moses? You believe in, Noah? He said, yeah. He said, I believe in all of them. I said, okay. I said, what about angels? I said, do you believe in angels? That, God, commands angels to help His believers, and, angels, they have jobs, they seek forgiveness for us. And he said, yeah. I said, okay. Okay. I said, what about, the day of judgment? I said, do you believe that you'll die and that you'll be resurrected? He said, yeah, I do. I said, okay. I said, here's my question. I said, if you believe in all of this, right? And if you die not believing in it, I said, will you go to hell? He said, yeah. I said, well then, why prolong it? I said, because, we don't know when we'll die. SubhanAllah, I know one brother, he's from DC. May Allah have mercy on him. You know what I mean? He went to a party one night, and when he left, he got shot in the face. Right? We never know. We never know. You may see someone today and you won't see him tomorrow. Right? And even Allah says this in the Quran, that no soul knows when it will see death. So for those who are really sure about, accepting Islam, do it as soon as possible. You won't regret it. I can honestly say you won't regret it. But don't prolong it. This will be the first step to happiness, to tranquility, to, fully enjoying your life. Right? And I can honestly say, I've done many things in my life, but I've never been as happy as I am now. And I've done many things in my life that I thought would bring me happiness, that don't bring me the type of happiness that I have now. Alright? So don't be afraid. Just do it.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been very, very interesting and amazing story. So dear viewers, we thank you very much. And as I said, we invite you to visit our website. It is islamunveiled.org. Through this website you will read many articles introducing Islam, talking about Islam, and also you will enjoy our kind offer, that is free books can be sent to you wherever you are. Up to now we are sending books to 190 different countries in 19 different languages. So we encourage you to visit our website again, www.islamunveiled.org, and also we will announce it to you towards the end of this presentation along with our email. Thank you very much to all of you, and may God lead us to the truth, capital T, all the time.
So unafraid of everything around me, proudly I would say I am a Muslim. If you ask her, why does she dress that way, all covered up?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون.